Star Wars challenge, they said. Participate I must. Welcome back to the Mind of Watercolor, everybody. Today's going to be one of my Paint With Me episodes, and I'm doing a portrait of Obi-Wan, believe it or not. I'm just going to make this kind of a vlog today. I don't even know what I'm going to talk about, but I'm a member of this art casters group on Facebook, and they issued a Star Wars challenge. So I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I thought it would be fun, and I love a good portrait, so I'm going to do a portrait here of Obi-Wan. This is pretty much as he would have appeared, I guess, in episode 3. Ewan McGregor. It's a really great, kind of a serious, regal, heroic look. Yeah, that'd make a great portrait. That was one of the darker of the films. You know, the one where Anakin completely goes to the dark side. And it's kind of, I guess, in some ways hard to watch, especially when Anakin kills all those little, what do they call them, younglings. I liked Obi-Wan, and I liked Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan, and he was definitely, his character was definitely the hero of that film. So I'm just toning the background right now. I want this to kind of be fairly loose. I drew the whole thing out in advance on the board. There was no pre-sketching or anything. I did that just to maintain some spontaneity and some looseness in the pencil, and I want some of the pencil line to show through. I thought that'd be cool. I'm not really normally a movie or film painter, but it's fun to do once in a while. On the Art Casters group that I'm a member of on Facebook, there's some really good ones on there. And they a lot of them try to make some extra money or even a living, selling their prints or whatnot on eBay. It's not really the direction I'm trying to go, but man, to sit and do this once in a while is a blast. It's getting some overall background tone. I don't know if you can tell in there, but I have masked off some highlights in the face. Trying to get some splashes of color here. I'm going to make the paint move around a little bit. That's cool. I love getting those spidery effects sometimes. Alright, so I'm probably going to let that dry and come back to you in a bit. Okay, I'm back. Obviously I've done a little more than just let this dry. Sorry about that. This is a big skip, and it's due to technical difficulties. Some of this background was still wet. I decided to go ahead and add some more washes and take advantage of wetness in certain areas. Things start happening fast. When you start working on these background washes, that's all I've done is just, and I've popped in a few shadows here. Now what I'm doing is softening these details here in where I lifted the masking fluid. I softened these details with a scrubber. That process is pretty much done too. I've been using this oil Hog's bristle brush. That's good for gentle scrubbing. For a little more aggressive scrubbing, been using this really stiff acrylic scrubber, which is almost like an acrylic wire brush. You've got to go gently. You've got to, number one, without good quality paper, you can't do it at all. You'll just completely tear it up. And secondly, if you go too aggressively and hard, you'll just start gouging the paper. By the way, this is Arches Watercolor Board. I love this stuff. This has all the advantages of painting on a rigid board like illustration board, but it's a lot more forgiving than illustration board. If you've ever done watercolor painting on illustration board, at least it does me, it will absolutely drive you up a wall. It's very unforgiving. It's okay for acrylic and pencil and stuff, and some artists even do watercolor on it. I can't. This, however, is like 140-pound hot press Arches watercolor paper applied to a board. so it's more forgiving. It has better wetness control, allows you to scrub and blend edges like when you put masking fluid on, without totally tearing up your paper. The illustration board it'll tear it up, or a cheap watercolor paper, these scrubbers will tear it up. Well, basically now I'm just going to go through and do a lot of glazes on the face, pushing the shadows back. And I had one color, and then sometimes I'll go in and glaze in a different color, just to kind of, shadows a lot of times go from cool to warm, and in the really highlight areas sometimes they'll be yellowish. This is especially true with facial tones. Facial tones are not flat, they're not monochromatic. This is why if you've ever seen colorized film, sometimes it doesn't look quite right. It looks like everyone looks pasty because they've colorized them with a flat flesh tone. Well, flesh tones are not flat. They're reddish in areas, they're bluish in areas, and they're yellowish in other areas. I usually start fairly monochromatic just so I can establish values. I also mentioned in that wisteria painting, the white blend that I use a lot. It's just a rag or a paper towel, put down a wash, quickly wipe, and blend it out. And I just go through and do that dozens and dozens of times throughout. Glazing adds luminosity. It's a technique used by oil painters. It's an old master's technique, and it works with watercolor too. Glazes are also just a great way to adjust value because you can do it gradually. It's really cool to see a face come to life. It starts to look back at you, and it's a neat thing. I know there are many of you out there that would like to learn portraiture. I know there are some of you that would like to just stay away from it, and that's fine. By the way, that's what I did for years and years and years. I just wouldn't touch portraiture. I wasn't that interested in portraits, and at the time, when you draw people, especially when you don't really know how, it's frustrating. If they don't look right, it's just frustrating. And you spend all this time on it, and you look at it and you go, it looks like crap. But for those of you who want to learn, what I found out is you have to start at the beginning by learning anatomy and proportions. Facial proportions are just really critical. You can paint a flower or a tree, and proportions are not a huge deal. You can get them a little off, and they're still going to look like a flower or a tree. Doing figure drawing and portraiture, this is not the case. We spend so much time looking at faces day in and day out, and you may not even be an artist. You usually can tell, you usually know when it's not right. Even if you're not an artist, it's just something about it that you go, ugh. It's possible for any artist to figure proportion out on their own, but I tell you, there's so much out there. So much of that work has been done. Go to my Pinterest if you have a Pinterest account and take a look at some of the references. That's the kind of reference you can start looking for. There's just tons of it out there now. Tons of it. And that's where you start. You start by learning the proportions and drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing. If you really want to learn this, there's not really any shortcuts. You have to take it a step at a time. Don't get discouraged. You draw a face until it looks like a face. You check your proportions and figure out where you've made your mistakes and do it again. Always have that mind of improving. Once you say, okay, cool, I've learned how to do that, I'm getting better, feel confident. Now how do I take it to the next level? And trust me, there's always a next level. Well, a few dozen more passes of glazes over the face, and I think we're getting close to calling this one done. And we're going to move on and announce the giveaway winner. Okay guys, without any further ado, let's get to our giveaway winner. I've gone through all the entries, randomly picked a winner, and Reese has got it right here. So let's see. Artidar. It's you. I'll message you privately and we can work out your shipping information. Thanks everybody for entering. This was so fun to be able to do this and give this away, and I got some really great comments from you guys. A lot of great encouragement, a lot of great information. about what all of you like to paint, and I'm definitely seeing some trends here and there, but it's giving me some ideas. So look to see some of those ideas come about in the future. But until then, see you next time.